Well, good morning. I'm here with David O'Connor with Inland Bank, and I wanted to talk with David. We had the opportunity earlier this week to talk about some changes that we're seeing in lending requirements up to the time of closing, and it affects both buyers and sellers. And I'd really like David to walk us through some of these changes because they're pretty significant in my opinion. And while I'm not looking for any sympathy, I've already lost one deal. I lost a seller side deal last Friday with some of these new procedures being implemented and work hours being cut and the lender pulling the clear to close. So what's new out there that we have to be worried about, David?
Well, good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me with you this morning. Lots of what's new, lots of stuff. You and I were talking earlier in the week, and I think the big thing, as you just mentioned, was about what happens as we get closer to closing now. So if I just back up for just a little bit, since the beginning of March, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, and just about every investor out there has made massive changes to guidelines, not only to pricing, meaning rates and fees and things like that, but to guidelines. So
just let me interrupt you, Dave. Let me interrupt you for 1 second there. You and I know this, and I suspect most of the folks in the industry do, but for people who don't, Freddie and Fannie are the government behemoths that write the lending guidelines, and if they make these changes, every lender has to comply, or you're subject to individual investor rules. But for the great bulk of us, what Freddie and Fannie dictate is what we have to live with.
Absolutely. So every lender in America, whether you're a bank, a mortgage broker, a mortgage banker, a private lender, everyone adheres to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae, which is FHA guidelines. So what they say goes, because if we can't meet their guidelines, we don't have saleable loans. One of the reasons we're having a problem in the mortgage market now is loans are becoming less and less saleable. And that's why these guideline changes are becoming necessary, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have determined that in order to have a stronger market and to have more mortgages saleable, we've got to change guidelines. So amongst many, one of the biggest changes was what we have to do just prior to closing. So I'll give you an example. In the old world, talking about a month ago, 2 months ago, once a loan was approved and cleared to close, with the exception of a few minor items that we did in-house as housekeeping items, that deal as a buyer and a seller and a real estate attorney and a realtor, whether you're the listing agent or the seller, you were certain that loan was ready to close unless something blew up with the house or the buyer,
Yeah, so in other words, right, so if I took a contract in January with a closing date of, let's say, February 28th, although whether it was a weekend is irrelevant for the example. Right. Once the lender issued clear to close on February 20, barring some catastrophic circumstance, we were good to go.
Correct. We're closing on the 28th. Now, one of the biggest changes that occurred in the last month was that Fannie and Freddie and Ginnie Mae now require us to re-verify employment for all borrowers within 24 hours of closing, if not the same day. So, for instance, if your closing's on a Monday, we have to try on Friday to verbally verify employment for all borrowers involved. So if you think about the logistics of that, as you mentioned earlier at your intro, with companies on short staff and people working from home and having issues with connectivities and all that stuff, the first issue is trying to get a hold of somebody at a given employer to verify employment. So that's issue number one.
Yeah, and I've heard that from multiple lenders, that verifications of employments, which used to be just matters of course, are now getting to be problematic.
Correct. And it's only because of the connectivity
Sure.
issues and the availability issues of people. So we have to put a phone call out the day before closing to verify employment. So if somebody on the other end doesn't answer, that closing gets canceled. We cannot close the loan if we do not verify employment. So that's for salary type individuals. So your average person that either earns an annual salary or is an hourly employee or an overtime employee or anybody that's not self-employed.